And down the boulevard, it jitters. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Hello, creatives community and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and all of you who take part in the show are the co-hosts of the channel as we talk about all things tabletop role-playing games. And we are continuing our week's discussion about the journey in the labyrinth, the classic hero's journey. And yes, and Labyrinth is about the film. Hells yes. No, we of course we were talking about the hero's journey and a I'll say a challenge to the classic monomyth of the hero's journey, which is the heroine's labyrinth, which I'm a fan of, if for no other reason that it is a different look at telling a great story about our main characters. And in novelizations and in literature, these structures help us. The hero's journey is often used to dismantle our media and when we follow these creative stories. And I felt like the heroine's labyrinth is another great example. If it's not quite cooked yet, I think it's a great starting point. Or yeah, I think it's a great starting point for us to use as an antithesis. But the criticism for using these things is like, hey, if you want to write a novel, go ahead and write a novel, but don't put it in role playing games. And I'm like, well, maybe we can make this kind of strange circle where if maybe we can recontextualize these structures and go, well, can we design adventures? But we have one. We have one called the 5 room dungeon. And the 5 room dungeon is like designing an adventure in its most breaking it down into its most simplest component parts. And is the journey and or the labyrinth a better mechanism to do that? I don't know. I'm right now I'm falling towards yes, but I can be convinced otherwise. And I thought we would take a look at it, and especially since the idea in the OSR, like Mike says, I'm seeing a dungeon as the hero's journey, especially in OSR, where a funnel is in play. All the challenges of journey could be elements of a dungeon. Exactly. And I'm wondering if the 5 room dungeon may have been dismantled to the point that it's gotten rid of so much extraneous information that it doesn't allow the growth that happens in the journey or the reveals that happen in Labyrinth. And I'm feeling like there's this push and pull with, which is why I love the Labyrinth so much, that the journey sometimes reveals the end of a journey. The hero's journey sometimes ends with you got to go back into the labyrinth and go back home and fix a thing there, and then the cycle continues on and on. So yeah. When he says, "Oops," if we're trying to discuss the yeah, we're trying to discuss the question that is in the title of this little chat, we can simplify this by saying yes. End of discussion. Yeah. The Yankee says, "Yeah, I always thought the Minotaur got a raw deal in the original Labyrinth myth." Yep, yep, absolutely. All right, so for those who do not know, the 5 room dungeon, and right now I'm on. Let's get. Well, l- let me. I didn't put this in the doobly, so I'm going to put it here in the chat right now to paste. I'm on a website known as it is known as chaosgen.com, and if you just refresh the page, it will give you. It uses a 5 room dungeon to generate dungeons. And for those who don't know, it says it right here in the name that 5 room dungeons are a type of adventure which include a mythic story structure in the rooms. This includes an entrance and guardian, a puzzle or RPG challenge, usually like a puzzle or a social challenge, a trick or setback, and a showdown or climax, and then a reward, a revelation, or a plot twist. And that's the breakdown of the 5 room dungeon. An entrance, a challenge, a trick or setback, a showdown, and then a reward or a revelation or a twist at the end. And this is a random generator. So uh, this website can give you, like, for example, if you just use the pull down, it gives you 10, it defaults to 10 random rooms or adventures, and it does it. I'm going to read this out. It's going to be a little clunky because it is a random generator, but we'll see what it says. So in the barren chambers, the first area is the entrance is over a rope bridge. The entrance is fake and leads to a monster lair. The real entrance is hidden nearby. um in area 2, a powerful creature, it is better to befriend than fight. Dangerous area 3, dangerous debris from a collapse covers a secret way into the showdown. And then lastly, the showdown. The lair is trapped, and the enemy leader can move around without setting traps off. There is a covered pit with a dangerous liquid within. The enemy leader gives some final words before dying. And then finally, there is treasure to be had, but it is dangerous to get because of a cavern of noxious fungi. And so this was just created from, some of the wording can be a little bit off just because it's a random generator. But essentially, these are simple 5-room dungeon ideas, and there's 10 of them. I'm not going to go through all of them. But I think there's something missing in this in a way. I think this is actually quite appropriate for classic OSR dungeon delving. The 5-room dungeon, often times the way it's designed, it really doesn't have much impact from the characters in terms of their growth, their background, or anything like that. I actually like the 5-room dungeon, which is why I'm comparing it to such an iconic role playing mechanism. But I think it doesn't, it, there isn't a prompt to include things from the characters' backgrounds, whether it is their background, their fears, their capabilities, their reputation, things like that, because it doesn't technically assume that that's what's going on. And oftentimes, if you're designing an adventure, you may not even know who's going to be in your game, so it's very difficult to do that. So I think the 5-room dungeon is there, but it's little basic. It's very simple ingredients for a very complicated uh, objective. Mm-mm, Let's see what you guys have to say. All right. So, um, Thomas Anderson, hey, man, I actually call you in a live stream instead of seeing it hours later. You're cool. Mike says, honestly, I grew up in the era of the mega dungeon. I see a 5-room dungeon as an appetizer. It very much is, right? Like, it's 5-room dungeon sounds very like not just even one shot, but like maybe even an hour's worth of play, right? If someone does it right. Uh, Drew says if the various steps of the journey or the labyrinth get separated into their own encounters or rooms, then it could be equally useful as the 5-room dungeon. And that's exactly what I'm thinking, because I actually took about 5 minutes to try to write something up in a way. So yeah. Drew goes on to say, otherwise, if one tries to just follow the formula, then you are not really engaging the interactive nature of our hobby. I definitely agree with that. I think I think the secret ingredient to the 5-room dungeon and then moving into the Journey Labyrinth mechanism is are the characters themselves, right? There's something special about a character that who has like demonic origins or graduated from a wizard school or just survived, just left military service or something like that. Wayne says, I'm not a fan of the 5-room dungeon fad. Think of it as a five easy mode simplified playstyle, but it would be great for one session adventure if you don't have or want to create anything or run a long story. I absolutely agree with you on that one as well. I think it's very now, mind you, remember these tools and mechanisms are exactly what that is, right? You don't necessarily want to use a wrench as a hammer, and you can do it, albeit there's a hammer that is much better for hammering in nails than a wrench, right? Uh, mm Yeah, the King says if we say there's something missing, maybe it's that there's no cohesive theme. It's just randomly room. put rooms together. Well, and all of that is based on the individual doing it, right? Um, People don't buy paint to paint their house and pick random colors, right? They actually pick a theme. I like this color. It goes with the items that I own. I like the way that makes me feel. It reflects or absorbs light, right? People don't do that, and in role playing games, we shouldn't do that either. Even with random generators, if you're gonna randomly generate things and you put in merfolk in your accursed desert, that's the fault of the originator. Yeah, Drew's like, yeah, dungeon crawling. I think there's a better way to look at it today, but I agree with you. Yeah, dungeon crawling never had much to do with the characters. Yeah, which is why it's not my style of play. Um, the End King says the original labyrinth is the Minotaur's house, so everything makes sense in that context. It is where he lived. When he says, "Note, I have a prejudice against much of how 5e plays." I get it. Okay, so allow me to introduce you guys to um, a document here. Let's share this. So, here in this document, in the hero's journey, I still think this layout is, it's just much better. All right, so here in this document, we have the hero's journey, and this is just an example that I've just snatched off the internet. It's pretty simple. Um, it goes around the 12 steps, but I think here, if we go through this very quickly, I think there's a way to mechanize the hero's journey. So for those who do not know, in the hero's journey, you can break it up into four sections. You have the call to adventure, you enter into a new world, you confront all your dangers and go into the hidden cave, and then you come back home. And those are like the four pieces of the pie. And the call to adventure is the ordinary world. And I think in a hero's journey, the ordinary world. Ooh, 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 ooh. Here we go. That's not what I wanted to do. What happened? Sorry. The call to adventure is the ordinary world, and the reason for in the heroes in the journey that you have an ordinary world is because you want to make it that much different than the amazing external exotic world. So you have um, a frame of reference, and I think the reason for the classic heroes meeting in the tavern and having adventure fall into their lap is to make things as simple and normal as possible. The heroes will eventually your protagonists are going to um, be greater than the ordinary world, and they want to expand out of it, but you need something to relax it against. And so often starting an adventure out in an ordinary setting is one. So I decided to write some down. So I was thinking of like a festival or a holiday is a very easy way to get your protagonists together doing simple things. Maybe they're having fun. Maybe another one is brooding in the corner because something sad happened on this joyous day. A festival could be something sad in a way. There could be a death, people are mourning something, or it could be a celebration or harvest. We get a lot of these holidays and festivals and things of that nature. For number two, I've got like rest and relaxation. Maybe this is the beginning of the adventure, like James Bond movies, is the end of the last adventure. Usually, the James Bond movies start in media res, where he ends on a past mission, runs around, comes back home, and then is relaxing, and then usually there's some clue where the adventure starts. So we have a coronation, graduation, a birthday. For these things, festivals, rest, relaxation, coronations, graduations, birthdays, and things, I think you can make them very personal to the characters. Maybe there is a relative or best friend or a loved one or unrequited love that's where something like this is happening. Maybe they have a younger sibling that is moving out into the bigger, wider world, and the PC is scared of what might happen next. Aftermath reconstruction, that's after a major event where maybe something traumatic has happened: floods, storms, mudslides, fires, earthquakes, uh, war. The PCs are there to clean up, reconstruct, help people. Are they injured? Maybe this is just simply after a major windstorm, tornado, hurricane, and they are fixing windows and doors and sweeping up or something like that, to make it very personal. Casino games, gambling, that's a very common thing. Games of chance, spending the gold that they got from their last adventure. And then lastly, of course, you have in food, drinking, lounging around, that kind of stuff. Then we get to call. I see what I did. Um, the next is the call to adventure. Why are they going on their adventures? And mind you, we could go into Chat GPT and go, give me 100, and then if you frame it right, punch out a bunch of these titles here. But like, what causes the PCs to go from mundane action to being called into the adventure? And of course, we've got the classic: the wise elder comes in, tells them about some danger, the wider world. Suffering victim is another one that puts it a little bit more immediate. Usually, people injured, hurt, poisoned, mind controlled, diseased, suffering, dead bodies, whatever. That pulls the PCs into it. Uh, Recovered notes, maybe a PC, and then you can make this. This is where you can get more personal. Recovered notes, diaries, something left for the PCs that they uncover that tells them about a danger that lies outwards from the world. A horrific event again, uh, death, destruction, um, a small village on fire and everyone's dead. Earthquake happens and the wizard's tower that has sat there for generations collapsed into the sea or something like that. A warning from on high. Maybe the PCs, this is a great one for player characters. Uh, a great power tells the PCs, please don't go to the south. You are never to go into the south. Don't ever move. If you go to the south, you're going to be in trouble. We're putting out a law. No one is to go to the south. Quarantine, don't ever do it, right? Tell PCs not to do something and they will absolutely do it. And then the changing world. Player characters still don't get a call to adventure. They sit still. They're in a tavern. They want to stay there for weeks. Instead, the world starts shifting around them. Maybe draconian laws are come about. We see this in Star Wars. What happens? People are normal. They're having their normal life, and all of a sudden, stormtroopers move in. The world starts to change around them, and then it's like, oh, let's see what you guys have to say. Sorry. Yeah, Drew. Yep. Yeah, Drew says, yeah, the using the frame of the hero's journey, the ordinary world should depict the mundane daily life of the characters. Exactly. And in a way, in a this is a strange thing to do in role playing, but it's great for stories, is to make it a little boring so the players want to leave. Like if the tavern is too exciting and there's too many great things going on, they might not want to leave it. But if it's a little bit boring, if it's a little bit like mundane kind of stuff, yeah, also it's a great way to get the players involved and to embrace the mundane life that is tavern life, village life, because it gives them something to come back to. Um, yep. Thomas Anderson mentions, yeah, military recruiter coming to tell them of the hordes coming to swarm the kingdom. Exactly. And then Drew ends this with, that's why Luke does not start in the cantina, but we see him tasked with farm work. Exactly. So when Luke, and I'm assuming this, right, using the framework, Luke is a moisture farmer. We actually never even get to see the moisture being farmed, but he's a moisture farmer. You know, how boring can that be? And then he goes to the cantina, and then when the cantina gets to the cantina, hey, now it's like, oh, this is a different world, and it's like there's scum in one corner and there's villainy in the other corner, right? Um, all right, so the refusal of the call. Now, the refusal of the call in a literary sense oftentimes is the hero who doesn't want to go on the adventure but has to. And some this is a way to contextualize in the hero's mind for us if we're reading a book or watching a movie or television show. Why they don't want to go. Sometimes it's to protect a young one. I'm looking at you, Katniss Everdeen, right? As tribute. My young daughter, I mean, my young sister is going to be going to go to the tribute and get murder killed. I better, volunteer myself. That kind of thing. War movies, because the hero's journey is essentially a soldier story. How many soldier stories do we see where they lament leaving home to go to war, but they're doing it anyway out of duty and honor and to prove that they're a quote unquote a man. Mulan is a perfect example where she is like, hey, my dad's going to go to war. He's actually better served being home, but if he goes to war, he's going to get killed. So I better go. I got to break the rules and go. So refusal of the call is one thing. Now for player characters, you really don't want your players refusing the call, but it's also been described as, in a literary sense, maybe something else in the world is telling our heroes they shouldn't go, but the heroes have already decided they're going to go anyway, and usually it's dangers. So here I have an NPC lists off the dangers, right? Hey, the wizard tower fell into the sea. Well, guess what? Here's why you shouldn't go, because these dangers are out there, and that's where maybe the players are told, oh, there's a dragon in the mountain. Oh, there's a Medusa that turns people to stone. Oh, there's an evil curse over the land. Oh, the region is being flooded and dark tentacles are reaching up from the deep sea or something like that. It's overbearing enforcers is another one. The idea of telling the PCs not to do something. For example, player characters must travel to the south. Enforcers keep walking around as soldiers or something, like, do not go to the south. You can't go to the south. We're going to prevent you from going to the south. And PCs are like, hell no, I'm not going to listen to you. Caring loved ones, please don't go. Easy one. Insistent tradition. Maybe tradition just says we never go to the south, and it's always been that way, always will be. You don't go through the valley. You don't go into the frigid north. You just don't do it. But there's no power. It could just be tradition. Um, the big bad evil guy sends threats, letters, emissaries. Back to Star Wars again. Stormtroopers. You're blah blah blah. Oh, the Emperor again, right? The big bad evil guy basically says, "Hey, everybody, uh, you stay put. You do as I say. Don't do these things." And lastly, there are dangling hooks. Dangling hooks basically means like the PCs are like, "Well, there's an evil lich to the south, but isn't there a dragon up north?" And then it's like, "Well, no, we have to ignore that. Ignore the other dangling hooks. Ignore the other clocks." Using a Blades of the Dark reference, and we got to go. So. Mm, 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 mm. Oh, wait. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the King says refusal to call is the one. Yeah, is the one that annoys players, it seems. Sometimes players overdo it. Yeah. I'm not gonna go. I'll never go. I'm not gonna, it's the classic, um, how do I get my players to latch onto my hooks? You know? And listen, there's a little bit of metagaming. Like some players get when they overdo that, it's like, what other world are you in? I'm the one running the game. I purchased X1 Isle of Dread. You're going to Isle of Dread. I mean, now you can come up with a reason why. And I think in terms of the unspoken rule, there must be we have to make a list of unspoken rules. One unspoken rule is grab the hook. If you're game master, storyteller, narrator purchase the Isle of Dread, go to the Isle of Dread, right? I don't Nobody gives a shit that your character doesn't want to go. As a player, your character's going. Now, you can come up with reasons why. Hey, my character is cowardly and all I want to do is sit and study my magic in the wizard's school, but I'm going to go because my best friend, older sister, I don't want to be left alone. I'm going to go with the big burly people who can protect me. Come up with a reason why. But latch onto the hook, right? And Thomas Anderson, yeah. I picture two aliens looking, alien looking entities going, "Hey, how you doing?" As they wave at you after you pointing at them, going, "There's scum and there's villainy." Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Oh man. Mm-mm-mm. Dragon's fire can't melt Albion stone. You guys are silly. Anyway, the here we go. Let me see. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. So quickly moving through this, we have the ordeal or initiation, and this section can be unlike the 5-room dungeon, which is kind of like limited. Like here's a guardian, here is a trap or puzzle or an interaction, here's a trick or setback or something. I think the ordeal can be it. This can be one adventure. This can be a year long, and basically um, the ordeal or initiation is our characters go into this great wide world and what is different about this exotic new world. Now, exotic doesn't necessarily mean it's a different plane of existence, but it could be. But if you take a look at at Saving Private Ryan, the opening of that movie is like that's the ordeal. That's going from the mundane world into hell. And so it could be as dramatic as that, or it could be your players have always lived in a verdant forest and now they're going into the accursed desert. Maybe they're going into a mountain range and they've seen mountains before, but in these mountains the peaks are taller, the cliffs are deeper, the winds are stronger. It is they hear sounds and of sorrow and fear in the wind as if ghosts are speaking in their ear or something. Maybe it's just eerie, or it could gravity's reversed, the sun is literally black, or anything like that. So we have the meeting of the mentor, and in the hero's journey, there's usually a mentor, and I put the very first one, the old wise one. Um, Lots of stories have a mentor that teaches the character, whether they are you're Paul Atreides and you're being taught weapon skills by Gurney, Duncan, whatever, right? The older wizened one. Of course, we have Gandalf, very very classic. Fairy godmother is an old wise one, but we can have other mentor figures, uh, a, a an object, person, maybe even a place, a memory that guides our heroes to keep them on track, especially when they have questions because they went from the mundane world to the exotic world. So you can have a ghost or a dream figure. This could be a memory. This could be an actual ghost. This could visit someone in their dreams or meditation. Someone speaking over their shoulder. We see this in drama where a sibling or a parent or a best friend dies and the person is still talking to them. We could have a detailed diary and notes. Someone finds it, it's leading them somewhere. We could have a recovered backpack, a bunch of random items from a distant land that don't mean anything, but each one is a clue to lead the character further and further into danger. We could have animal companions. I'm looking at you, Dances with Wolves. Sometimes the quote unquote animal companion can be someone watching the birds and migratory paths. It could be a wild beast out in the distance that they're following. It could be tracks or sounds. And someone's like, oh, if I just follow the animals, that's going to guide me because that's the natural order or something. And then, of course, we have a knowledgeable guide, right? Someone, usually a scrappy kid or someone who lives in the region that doesn't really know everything, but they can get the hero from A to B. Often, let me go back here. Lastly, often the knowledgeable guide can also be a sidekick in a lot of these stories. Military stories, character goes into the military, they befriend someone in the military who doesn't know their background, doesn't it, but explains what prison life is like, what soldier life is like, what it means to live in the desert. They may not know that you're going to try to kill the blue dragon in the accursed desert. All they know is, hey, let's be friends, and I can guide you here. And here's how to find water. Here's how to get shelter. Oh, you see that on the horizon? That's a sandstorm. Let's watch out for that. So a knowledgeable guide is often great. And also, let's be honest, in a lot of movies and television, the guide explains the guide explains the rules to us so that we understand what the hell's going on. I'm looking at you, Inception. And then crossing the first threshold. What do the characters see? It could be as dramatic and horrific as Saving Private Ryan, or it could be subtle. So, what are sights and sounds? What are sensations and impressions that they receive when they get there? What civilization and society like that has changed from where they've been? Um, no longer normal nature. Like maybe does it rain with the water going, vertically up? Is the sun actually black here? Is magic different? Do they eat different foods? That kind of thing. Is there a predator back where you used to be, but now here they're pets and they are like bonded with them or something? And then of course the wonders and dangers. What's the really cool things Luke Skywalker saw when he left home, and what are some of the nastiest, dangerous things that he saw as well? Um, so some mixing the wonders and the dangers of things, and then any paths forward or back, maybe. Paths forward. How if it's so dangerous, why would the characters even bother going forward? Is there a path to go back home? Is that path blocked every time they move forward? Is it blocked from them going backwards? Uh, do they have to go on a pirate ship and sail through dangerous volcanic whirlpool infested water? And then it's like, well, I can't go backwards without some help, that kind of thing. So, and then lastly, we have tests, allies, and enemies. And of course, we've got physical tests: running, jumping, swimming, lifting, um, uh, uh, manual dexterity, mental tests, observation, perception, investigation, uh, uh, history, religion tests, a lot of knowledgeable things, puzzles, figuring things out, social tests, of course, saying the right things, um, dressing the right way, acting correctly, using the correct honorifics, um, being Spider-Man being torn between helping Aunt May and going, fighting bad guys or something. What do you do? How do you say good? How do you get out of the being arriving at the coronation when you really need to be sneaking in the background? And how do you navigate that social part? Oh, you weren't at the coronation. I'm going to ding you for that kind of thing, right? Of course, we have allies, which people are allies, which people are enemies. Maybe these are very well known, and then hidden things of all the above. Maybe do the characters realize they're being tested mentally or socially? Do allies become enemies and enemies become allies, or are they hidden away? Going back to the labyrinth, are they masked enemies and they seem like they're allies, and then are there enemies but they're not really enemies? That goblinoid horde, maybe they really, maybe they really are friends after all, or at least tense um, uh, allies and things like that. Boo, 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 boo. Let's see. Sorry. Sorry, just catching up to what you guys are talking about. Let's see. Wayne says refusal to call is a good reason not to do a fully detailed encounter or dungeon writing. Okay. Um, basic story outline. Yep. Very brief NPC note and bullet points to story and go. Yeah. 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 Just because you never know if the player characters make a left turn and you spent 5 hours, working on this, and they don't take the hint. It's a good way to recontextualize it and do it like a quantum ogreing or something like that. Oh man, you're so funny there, Ta. The N King says, if you live your whole life in Idaho, Wyoming might be exotic. Actually, you're not. You, I know you're being sarcastic, but you're not actually wrong about that, right? I mean, in real life, how often in our own lives, how many small town people want to go to big towns, and how many big town people are thrown by small town? I mean, I grew up on the east coast of United States, a tri-state area, Philly, Jersey, Delaware, and a couple of 3 or 4 hours from New York City. not very far away. Big city, concrete. I moved out here to the Ohio Valley, and it was like night and day. So, yeah, just leaving your small town is a hero's journey for many people, especially coming of age stories. Yeah, convertible, bunch of friends get in the car, drive to a distant place, and might only be like 20 miles away. Who knows, right? Car breaks down, adventure ensues. Right. Oh man. Oh yeah, TA's like, yeah. What's reverse gravity for? Hell's yeah. Yo, man, that's pretty nasty. The Head Geek says in horror, crossing the threshold is almost universally a bad thing. Yep, yep. Young folk go to hey, I've got the keys to a cabin. We can go. No one knows we're here. Car breaks down, no cell phones, service. Creepy guy warns them of going to the cabin or something. Yep. Horrors easily does that. Yeah. Oh man. Oh, thanks, Wade. Sorry, trying to get to see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Drew says, like you said before, yeah. As I've said before, I really don't like skill tests. I prefer to have the tests of the hero's journey be more about our virtues. Now, I do agree with that. I feel like and this could be a way to test out the like what do the characters want, what are their wants and needs, and maybe even fears and desires, right? So moving back up here to like the test allies and enemies region of adventure design. It is the paladin that devoted to their order? Are they concrete in it, or is there a person or a place or a thing or an ideal that would break them? Are they truly, like, are they going on this adventure because they are afraid someone will find out that they are a fake or a phony? You know that might be a thing. Maybe it's a test of their own. Maybe they've never been tested, and their family and all members of their family are all the bravest people in the world, and they're going like, I've never been tested with my bravery. That kind of thing. And maybe there are people that that leave home long distances and for long periods of time get homesick. Maybe that's a thing. Um, that kind of stuff. Okay, now we get into the unification of transformation, and the reason why this is called unification transformation is after going through all the tests and all the tests of themselves, tests of their psychology, their physical prowess, they've collected their allies, they've gotten rid of most of their enemies. The party is now cohesive, and this is where our hero um, becomes who they are. It is, are they fearful? Are they not? Now, no, I am. I have courage, yes. Or I admit my fears, but I'm going to confront them. Um, I might sacrifice myself to commit to this, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is where this is the John Wick. Maybe John Wick isn't a very good example, but this is where John Wick keeps saying, he says, everyone keeps asking me whether I'm back. Well, I'm thinking I'm back, right? The whole time he's like, no, I'm just working something out, right? Even though he had about 30 bodies, 40 bodies to his name at that point. But the point is, this is where everything comes together. So that's why it's called unification. And we go to the approach the inmost cave. That is a literary term, but it doesn't need to be a cave. But usually it's the BBEG's lair, a cavern, crevice, valley, enclosed stone-like structure. It could be a sailing vessel, submarine, something like that. It could be sewer tunnels, an actual dungeon in the bottom of a castle. This could be the top of a tower where it narrows at the top and you confront evil. It could be on top of rooftops and under a storm and high winds or whatever. It could be a zoo, prison, cages, things like that. Usually, the approach to Immo's cave is constrained in some way. If it is open, it means that really the heroes and the villains can't go very far from where they are constrained. So if they are fighting on top of a tower with a flat surface and there's a storm around it, going off the edges means they fall to their death, right? So, or oftentimes there might be a big flat plane, but it's crumbling away because of the power of evil being thrown amok in chaos. And so you have to fight on top of um, tall, narrow spires or something like that. Oftentimes you see that happen on the skin of an airship or a sinking vessel or a collapsing building or something like that. And then lastly, we have the ordeal, and the ordeal is what's okay. The inmost cave is where it's at. The ordeal is what you have to go through. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's mental, sometimes it's all of it, right? Luke Skywalker, as much of as a badass as we think he is, didn't kill Darth Vader. Actually, Luke Skywalker won by not doing such a thing, right? So maybe they're surrounded by elemental fury. We see this very common for visual effects: winds, storms, hail, rain, fog, high waves, fire. We see a lot of this happening. Usually, a lot of elemental fury, fearsome tests of willpower, uh, uh, fear, guilt, horrific images, sounds of loved ones that have died, being told about their failures. That's another one. Armies of minions. That's a very common one. The big bad evil guy stands in the background, hidden away, or standing up on high, whatever, and the heroes just get overwhelmed by the classic. What is it? um, Classic Marvel, and I even have a T-shirt. It's aliens, robots, and wizards. It's just it's a bunch of crunchies, mooks, right? Maybe the ordeal's a loss of power. So Superman's story, right? Superman fights to get to the inmost cave and then loses his power because of kryptonite. Uh, Iron Man is there blasting everybody and his power suit dies. Thor loses his hammer. It's a loss of power. My magic doesn't work. I lose my flaming sword. Things like that. That's more literary sometimes. But if you're fighting a beholder with an anti-magic ray, that represents that loss of power. Layers of deception, illusions, mirrors. You think you kill the big bad evil guy, but the BBEG is still there. And then there's barriers, ramparts, and fortifications, fighting through to get over, around, and through various physical barriers and things of that nature. Those are some examples that I came up with. Believe me, that is not the end all. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Mike says, having had players who actively refuse any call of any kind, this sort of behavior has a time limit. Yeah, refuse to call and the call comes to you. Uh, that's been a mantra that I've mentioned. Like, if the world doesn't move, if you don't move in the world should move you. So one of the mistakes I think world creators we do is we make the world so static that if the players don't do anything, nothing happens. Drew says, I'm a big city girl, never going to change that. My town is my heroine's labyrinth. Yeah, we're going to get into that as well very quickly. Oh man, TA says, "Oh man, yeah, try being a runaway on the streets of Philly and going from that to living out in the boot heel of in NM state down in the deep desert lands." Oh, New Mexico, yeah, 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 yeah. And listen, and how many times have we seen drama stories? Someone leaves home and they go away to college, right? That is leaving home and going on like a journey. And then when they get to college, who's their friend? Who's their enemy? Are they going to be tested physically by drinking too much and staying up too late and getting good grades? Are they going to be tested socially? Do you want to be best friends with the party person, or do you want to get good grades in school and get a law degree, right? Wayne says, I spent nearly 2 years hitchhiking across the country. That was a journey. Ooh, everybody's got a story, dude. Wow, wow, wow. See, that is a hero's journey all unto it, a literal physical hero's journey all unto itself, right? Very cool. Very, very cool. Now, I'm going to share the heroine's labyrinth. Oh, let me move down here. And for those who are uncertain about what another page. There we go. Um, the heroine's labyrinth. Okay, let me share one thing. Going back and forth. Heroine's Labyrinth, Douglas A. Burton has come up with something known as the Heroine's Labyrinth, and it is the prototypical female's story. Now, this doesn't mean it is only feminine, but ancient stories have this, and he came up with this method of describing that. So the journey is one that's external. The labyrinth is internal. And when I say internal, it is at home, and it can also be internal in the mind and internal in the heart. And it has these various sections. There is one section missing from this that I heard in the podcast, which is something called the sacred flame, and that the heroine has the sacred flame and everybody wants it. And it I think he needs to update it. I'm gonna contact this dude and let him know that the sacred flame needs to be in here, and that whether the heroine understands what the sacred flame is and the society understands what the sacred flame is, this person has the sacred flame and must embrace it, and so that's part of the heroine's journey. But when I go over here, I'm going to share this back here. In the heroine's labyrinth story, the reason why I like this also as a structure is because it gives us it gives us another option. Why the hell can't we have competing options, whether they're good or bad? So here we have the labyrinth defined, and this are all the elements of the labyrinth. So what is a labyrinth? Well, we already know Minotaur's labyrinth, a maze, sewer systems. Usually, the labyrinth might be just outside the city. It is the unknown, confined, mysterious region that is hard to navigate through. Usually it's a dark forest or a jungle. Don't go out there, Red Riding Hood kind of thing. Sometimes the labyrinth is a social one. I'm small city. I need to go to the big city, and the cars and the lights and the sounds and the people are confusing me. You know, they are dressed funny. I can't tell who's who and what's what. They are speaking funny. There are criminals here who easily take advantage of me. That's the labyrinth from the small city to big city. Big city to small city. You get to big city person gets to small city, doesn't understand. Calm it down, slow it down. Your money and your privilege doesn't work here out in a small city. Be nice. Your very expensive red sports car and high heels or a business suit doesn't work out here in muddy fields and dusty landscape and cow country, right? Motorcycles and like right. So the labyrinth as well goes on with the culture truce. The All of these three go together: the culture truce, the master minotaur, the matriarchal paradox. And I love the master minotaur here because this gives us the ability to use deceptive NPCs. And I love myself some hags, rakshasa, doppelgangers, um, silver dragons, fiends that shape change, ogre magi or oni. The culture truce is uh, act right, stay right. Um, if you don't upset the apple cart, things will be fine. Don't go out into the world. Don't leave the small town to go to the big city. Don't say the wrong thing to the sheriff. Yeah, we know the Waltons control the farmland out here in this small town, but nobody just says anything against the Waltons. We just work for them, even though they pay us very little money, right? That's the thing. The Master Minotaur is the social paragon who's evil. The heroes already know they're our main protagonists. Point over it. That's the evil person right there. They're rude, they're evil, they're hidden, and nobody believes it. You know, knowing that there's a fiend, knowing that there's a hag and her evil children, knowing that there's a rakshasa who's made deals with individuals, right? But The heroes know that and may want to go murder kill them, but everybody else is like, I don't understand what you're talking about. This person is great. Um, the matriarchal paradox again goes with the culture truce in the sense of, and it's called matriarchal just because it's historical, is that hey, we all sorry, we all respect what's going on in the culture, but we need to break the rules to fix something. And that becomes a problem. Yes, I need to go out there to the wild world. I need to break tradition. And so I think these two are put together. Um, the sacred flame, the call to adventure, again, why should they go out into danger? And then entering the labyrinth, going into the dangerous area. And I think this part of it for me, for the labyrinth defined in the for the labyrinth storytelling can make this very, very personal. You know, this is the paladin or the herald uncovering corruption within their own. This is the wizard finding out that one of the greatest wizards, educators, mentors ever was secretly in league with a fiend or something. This is the rogue thief bard that finds out that hey, we were sure we were rebelling and committing crimes and things, but man, we really need to take down the government because they are super corrupt and they've been kidnapping and murder killing all the people that are speaking up against the government or something like that. That this makes it, I think this type of storytelling structure makes it personal, and I bet we could make a lot of um a lot of die tables for all of these things to make a structure. Lastly, the sacred flame, before we get out of here, the sacred flame is like a special power or intuition or strength or whatever that our protagonists have. So oftentimes our heroes are going out there to find magic. They're going out there to find a reward. They're going out there to get, but maybe there's something that the enemy wants to take from the PCs. And that's not often done, but I think it's a very good storytelling element. How are you able to cast magic? Where does your inner power come from there, Paladin? You know, why are you so inspirational there, Bard? What is that special songs, the songs that you know? We need to hear them or use that power for our own benefit or something. Um, Let me get back to see what you guys have to say because it's very complicated. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking it too. I didn't want to go there. And he said, next time I DM something, I'm going to have a master minotaur flexing and suplexing guards. Superfly Schnooker off the top tower. Elbow. Bam. Right down into the sewer. Mm-mm-mm. Wow, you guys. I should interview you guys. My ass ain't hitchhiking nowhere. I'll be in a ditch somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So the labyrinth navigated. So we have the labyrinth defined. So defining this part of it is very personal. What is the labyrinth? What's the danger out there? How does it relate to our main characters? And a character that is navigating in their own wizard school would be awesome. A barbarian that goes back to their raiding days and no longer is raiding, but has to go back home and is navigating the labyrinth of their returning home. We see this labyrinth story told many times when a person leaves home and comes back many, many years later, usually told at weddings/funerals, uh, oftentimes, and has to navigate the new rules of what it's like to be back home again. Uh, uh, what was told in the podcast I listened to by Mr. Burton was that Rambo First Blood is a labyrinth story. It's not necessarily a hero's journey story. It's a labyrinth story. And when he gets to the small town, on his way walking through the small town to get back home, as we find out 5 or 6 movies later, we find out, well, we kind of knew that he was doing that. He goes into town, he gets into the labyrinth, and literally gets kicked out the labyrinth and thrown on the outside of town. And what does he do? He turns back around and goes right back into the labyrinth. So labyrinth navigated. We have a cult of deception, talking about Rambo, right? We have a cult of deception. There are people and agents who want to keep it this way. There are people who are saying things and doing things. This is very political. This is very social. This is these are people. Sometimes the cult of deception is an open. It is an open secret. No one says anything because everybody says to keep their head down, right? Um, the three chambers. Usually there are in the as described by the Mr. Burton that there are three chambers and there's one or more chamber guardians, and usually the chambers uncover the chambers test our labyrinth dweller again physically, mentally, emotionally. Doesn't need to be in that order, or it doesn't need to be that way, but that can challenge the person. The barbarian, are you really oh, okay, inner city stories, inner city ghetto stories, ghetto struggle stories, right? You ain't down, you ain't with us, come with us on a drive-by, right? It's the I'm not being challenged by this. The physical test. Hey, can you dance? We're not allowed to dance here in this small town, but can you dance? You think you can dance? Hey, is it? I bet you're too scared to jump off the cliff into the quarry, right? These are like the chamber things before more adventure matters. It could be climbing, descending, navigating through something where you have to reveal your weaknesses. Um, Swimming into a cavern and the armored paladin has to remove their armor to get through or they're going to drown, something like that. Chamber guardians don't need to be monsters, but they can be. And sometimes a chamber guardian is like a sphinx, knowledgeable, right? Like I'm here to keep you from getting in there or even keep you from getting back out of the chamber, but I'm here and I'm going to challenge you to do the thing. And it could be very social, right? Dragons, knowledgeable dragons are this way. Rakshasa even. Can you make a deal with me and get out of the deal at least with your soul intact? Maybe. Um, Beast as ally and sympathy for the other is a very common thing. Beast as ally, something very dangerous, evil, and this is actually far more common than a little bit in fantasy Dungeons and Dragons, to be honest with you. But it is we think the evil thing out there is the danger, but actually they're the good guy. It's the cult of deception that might be the bad guys. It's the masked minotaur. It's the dragon that everybody wants to kill. I'm looking at you, Dragonheart, right? But really, or what is it? One foot in front of the other. The Abominable Snowman. Where the Abominable Snowman has a a tooth and just needs the dentist elf to pull the tooth to be friend because it just hurts so much, right? That kind of thing. The Broken Truce and let's see, Broken Truce, Poisoned Apple, and okay, the Broken Truce Poisoned Apple is the point at which the big bad makes a deal, tries to make a deal with our protagonists, and tries to find whether it succeeds or fail. The Lich says, "Come to my side." The Fiend says, "I can promise you power." The Vampire Lord says, "I can make you immortal." It is the dragon says, "I will share with you a piece of my hoard if you do this thing." It is the here is the gift, and we all know, you know, here's an apple, here's a poison dagger behind my back, right? Here's the apple, and if you bite into it, you're probably not going to survive it. But I'm going to offer it to you anyway. And some players actually grab onto it, when the fiend says, "Hey, uh, take this as a story." And I think there's a real way to do that, especially if you for designing adventures that like what in the bad guy doesn't want to die and talks to the PCs and is just like, "Hey, what can I trade for you?" And I think a D100 rule. What would the big bad evil guy? What will they trade or promise or deliver to the heroes if they stop doing what they're doing? TA says, "I still want to see a game system built on the werewolves are a-holes universe with an uber Uber type service that caters to supernatural entities and such. All ran by Medusa, if I recall. Is that, are you, did they do that in like Angel TV show? Can't remember. The End King says, and in First Blood, he even follows animals, hordes of rats back to nature. Yeah, that happens a lot in, uh, strangely enough, that happens quite a bit in heroic stories where the hero figures something out by communing with nature. We see this where the hero is jammed, stuck, can't figure their way out, and they hear birds, they see rats, a small dog, a squirrel, or something goes through a small crevice or crack, and then the hero follows nature to figure their way out of a thing. And yeah, that happens a lot. Although there is a Liam Neeson movie where it was the complete opposite of that, but which I really liked. It was I don't know the name of it, but he ends up one by one. The people in the movie get killed off by a pack of wolves when a plane goes down in the Arctic wilderness, and the very end of credit scene is all you see is just gray fur, just breathing slowly and haphazardly. Man, um, Tia says, not sure. I just know there's a whole universe this creepy pasta writer is building. I think you're talking about me. Wayne says, wow, that gives me an idea to keep in mind. Hero's Journey and Heroine's Labyrinth combined. Love these charts. As a matter of fact, I I tried to figure out, is there really a Journey Labyrinth combined together? And I think Mulan is that story. So the beginning of Mulan is Labyrinth. She's culturally confined, and the labyrinth is actually war happening outside her village. And she is socially confined. She's got the matriarchal paradox, right? She must be she can't do the things he does, right? Whatever, male female gender roles and stuff. So king leader whatever, Khan comes in, says, hey, we need warriors. She takes dad's place. She then goes from labyrinth into hero's journey. She leaves the bigger world. She finds enemies and allies within the group in the soldiering. She's tested physically. She's tested mentally. She has to navigate socially so no one discovers who she is. She ends up doing those things. But then combined with that, let me move back up here. Combined with that, she has sympathy for the other. Oftentimes in the heroine stories, she makes allies with people who are not normally strong or perceived as being valuable, and so other soldiers, she makes them um, basically makes them believe they're better than they really are, right? And then after doing the physical hero tested fighting big bad, she comes back to from the journey back to the labyrinth and unmasks the Minotaur. Home is battleground, shield maidening the whole thing, slaying the Minotaur, that kind of thing. So she does this when she comes home. She breaks she atones for herself. She breaks um the home as battleground doesn't need to be physical. It could be the rules and structures that hold a person back, and find out that she is a great warrior. She is protecting her people. She is giving honor to her family, that kind of thing. Um, I can't, I don't know if there's an unmasking the Minotaur involved in that, but there, you could be forgiven if you're combining both of them. So yeah, absolutely. But okay, so very quickly, the labyrinth solved region right here, and in all of this is the fact that you unmask the Minotaur, and unmasking the Minotaur is revealing to everybody that this person is evil incarnate, and you need to understand this person is evil. Oftentimes, the unmasking the Minotaur, that person is thrown down in front of everybody, and they're completely surrounded. Uh, I brought this up before. Denzel Washington in Training Day at the very end of the movie is a good example of that. King Kong ain't got nothing on me moment, right? It's the It's it's the Scooby Doo moment. If it wasn't for you meddling kids, I'd have gotten away with it, right? It's that kind of thing. Home is battleground, testing the rules of home and saying, "Hey, I broke the rules, but please forgive me." Shield maiden moment. We see this oftentimes where the shield maiden stands in front of great evil to protect an innocent, sacrificing herself, maybe sacrificing themselves. Sometimes they don't sacrifice themselves because the beast as ally steps in, the sympathy for others steps in and helps out so she doesn't have to sacrifice herself. Um, Slaying the Minotaur basically removes them. The difference between unmasking and slaying is that sometimes she doesn't slay the Minotaur, but the people that she brought up with her slay the Minotaur. And I'm using the gender specified because it's very mythological. Whereas in a lot of these stories, for example, the hero doesn't necessarily need to kill the dragon. Maybe the hero finds the weapon that kills the dragon, right? Um, Labyrinthine war stories start this way sometimes, where it's not what's the movie 1917. The hero of that, the protagonist of that story, does not solve the war. All that hero was trying to do was get a message through the labyrinth to get to the other side. Now, is there unmasking and all that? Not really, but whatever. Atonement with self is like, was it necessary to break the rules or do what they had to do to be who they are and master labyrinth? So anyway, sorry, let's get back here. The movie was The Gray. Thank you, Deadman. Deadman, yes, thank you so much. I think it's a great. Yeah, yeah, being hunted by hyper intelligent wolves. Maybe a little too intelligent, but whatever. Whatever. So uh, let's get back to my supposition on this entire thing. Um, is do I think this is better than the 5-room dungeon? Yes. More complicated? Hell's yes. Uh, Quite a bit more complicated to do a hero's journey, do a journey labyrinth thing, but I would say that I I believe because there are more steps in the journey and there are more steps in the labyrinth, I believe there's greater possibility to curtail if something goes off the rails. So, for example, here in the hero's journey, if they go through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the PCs make a left turn, then steps 5 through 12 you don't need to worry about, right? They made a left turn. We're just going to pivot and go somewhere else. Whereas the 5-room dungeon, if they get to room 1 and then turn away, you're pretty much done. But this, you can get pretty far, and even if they turn away, I think you could still tell a great story. Using mechanical features in your own game, a fantasy game. Also, having a journey and/or labyrinth that gives you 2 great options with at least 24 to 35 different mechanisms or places, stop points to say, hey, here's a new thing that for the players to encounter. Here's a new thing for them to be challenged. Here's a new thing to get more role playing. Here's a new thing for me to insert all those monsters that I have in my role playing book. Here's a new thing to test their to bring out more of the inner turmoil and desires of what the players want. And also, I think this allows us to turn a number of dials to make it real personal. It's one thing to go in the Wizard's Tower. It's another thing to go into the Wizard's Tower where you first learned magic and find out that your mentor made a dangerous deal with a fiend and is now being used to usurp the nobility or something like that, and that the character themselves is part of it. So, and I think this opens up a lot of that. So, do I think it's better? I think it's a more refined tool, and believe you me, I couldn't even see like D100 tables for all these 12 steps here just to have some like, oh, I don't know what I need to think of something. What's better than the old wise person as a mentor roll on table? Oh, a mystical book that has pages and there's nothing written in it, but every time you turn a page, it opens up yet one more mystery as they, something like that. A colorful tropical bird that lands on the shoulder of the character, pointed them in the proper direction, something like that. So, creepy pastas, you guys. A creepy pasta based role playing game system based on the Neverland 2, kind of Cthulhu mythos into a D&D like campaign world. Ooh, wonder if you could get all the creepy pastas and put them together. Anyway, Wayne says some good story ideas can come from creepypasta or Mr. Mythos and Wendigoon. I like Wendigoon. AJ Pickett and yeah, and can't think of the other D&D lore channel. Darn it. Dungeon Cast. I think it might be. Well, that's one. Is that the only one? No, they're not the only one. Dungeon Cast might be another big one, which has a lot of lore involved in it and such. But yeah, crazy, wild, crazy stuff to think about. I was just basically just saying to myself, like, when it comes to storytelling and adventure design, sometimes we don't have a lot to pull from, and we get stuck. And I think the 5 room dungeon is a great starting place. One shots, it doesn't lead very far, but it could be for it. I suppose if you make a number of them, you could build them into a big campaign. But the Journey and Labyrinth, I think, lends itself to more campaign style adventuring, and um, gives us prompts and tools, I think, to make it personal. So, yeah. Photo reactivating, pretty expensive, but I think it would be awesome. Mm-mm-mm. The level 10 ancient elven world changing the magic center. The name will come to me after the stream. Yeah, listen, don't get it twisted. Doing these shows live, uh, too much shit comes to mind afterwards, and I'm like, why didn't I say that on the channel? Why didn't? That's why I go late all the time, because I'm like, there's got to be one more thing in my brain, and I can feel it. You know, waking up at 5 in the morning to after watering and feeding the cats and the fish. And Mr. Rex, there it is, there it is. You did it. Yeah, yeah. Lore channels. And now, ever since Watsy smacked us all in the face, there a lot of those lore channels, AJ, Rex, these guys are going into other avenues other than Dungeons and Dragons, which I prefer. Maybe it hits their channel deeply, but the knowledge is there. So I'm really liking what they have. Just as an update, I'm still working on the Chat GPT game, D12 system, roll high but not too high, 5 stats so far listed as a Iron Shadow, Fire, Blood, and Light. Um, and I'm thinking of expanding it into a Magic, Cthulhu, solar system game. For some reason, I'm just picturing friggin' people starting a fire, like on the surface of Mars, with a shattered, domed city in the background and things like that. I don't know why. 61 years old. What? What? Hey, I'm there with you. So our memories. Wow. Sometimes our brain cells are just like woo disappearing. I hate it. You're so right. Watsy crapping the bed caused a million heroes' journeys. Hell yeah. And now when they come back, now everybody's got to get down into the labyrinth. What do you do when you come back into the community, and how does the community react when you come back to it and the rules in the community? Some people are like are in a proverbial psychological sense want to burn their Watsy materials and books. Other people are like, I still like them. I hope D&D survives, right? And how do you navigate that? Because there are some people who are just still pissed off, completely pissed off. Me, 4 for that. My point is, they're no better and no worse than it. Well, they are absolutely no better than any other third party. Level Up, Cobalt Press, so on and so name them all. DCC, I'm down with all that. ICRPG, Knave, Shadow Dark that's come out, OSR stuff. I'm all about that. Yeah, a journey. Yep. A journey to other games and other places. Yeah, and yeah, mention that creepy pasta Discord. It's fun to talk about. Ooh. I'm thinking of a number between 0 and X. Guess to see if you hit it. Well, it is rock paper scissors lizard Spock stolen kind of. So let's see. Let's see if I could rock is fist, shadow is open hand, fire is pointed finger, as in like shooting a gun pointing at you or poking you with a weapon. So fist, open hand, pointed finger, palm up for blood, uh, blood, life, helping hand, and then light is a circle, an eye looking through a peephole. So yeah, rock paper scissors, lizard Spock. Iron, iron, shadow, fire, blood, light, and whatever. We'll figure it out. Skill rolls, checks, um, background. Uh, I it's going to have. It's not really a Planet X. It's called Eris, which used to be Xena, which used to be Planet X, which um, out in the Kuiper belt or something like that. Planet X comes into our orbit. That becomes the catalyst. Hilarity ensues in the setting, something like that. A little sci-fi because I'm a sci-fi head. Um, but anyway, guys, thank you for being part of the show. I'm taking too much of your valuable time. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. We'll continue this one conversation just a little bit tomorrow. Then we get to stream